Previous experiences, accidents, and traumas. All of these have profound effect on your doodle's behavior. They're going to remember whether their first experience was awesome or awful. They're going to remember whether you paid attention when they needed a break or you did not. So we need to think about what happened to our doodles in the previous experiences to be able to determine what kind of grooming steps and strategies they need, or maybe they need desensitizing, or they need a little bit more treats, or they are totally fine. So let's take a look at previous experiences. What do I mean by that? In case we are dealing with a beginner dog, then actually we are super lucky, because though they don't have much experiences, you don't have to deal with bad ones. And that's a huge, huge help, because desensitization is always a tricky, risky business, and it takes a lot of time and effort. So for beginners, you're gonna have ton of space to shape the doggy in a way that they're gonna be comfortable throughout the grooming. In case your doggy had previous experiences, let it be good or bad ones, then you can either keep up the awesome work and keep them comfortable, or you can work on desensitizing them so they can forget what happened in the past and forgive to you or the care provider who did it to them, and they can be okay with the grooming steps they got hurt before or experienced discomfort. Whether they had a joyful grooming experience or one which was done in a rush, or they use methods with a lot of force, for example, grooming loops, harnesses, muzzles, and things like that. So in case your doggy comes from a joyful grooming experience kind of way, transitioning to grooming your doggy at home or preparing them for a haircut will be a piece of cake, because they're going to cooperate for you, because they know that it is awesome, and they just ask for more rubs on their butt with the brush. In case your doggy experienced kind of a forced methods and in a rush kind of grooming where their needs were not really taken into consideration, but to get done and get over with the grooming part and put the money in our pockets, that kind of experience will leave a watermark on your doodle's mind, and we really need to work on to keep them comfortable and have them forget what happened to them and forgive for us or for the care provider, whoever did whatever to them. So they're going to be able to joyfully cooperate with you again. We're going to talk about these, by the way, in a nutshell in this slide. And then we're going to come up with real life cases in videos with doodles on. So I wanted to talk about these so you're going to get a better understanding and a general idea of what we need to keep an eye out for. And then we're going to go into details with real doggies and with real videos, with me showing you what kind of signs tell you what and how can you resolve situations. And we're gonna work on desensitizing and getting doggies used to grooming steps. So let's go further with this section. Trained to grooming steps, not trained. This is a critical part here, because whenever doggies get exposed to grooming steps with training, so for example, you were practicing how to check the matted hair between the toes or paw pads, and not just squeeze the paws like usually doodle moms or any kind of doggy moms and dads do it, is going to be critical. So once your doggy is used to getting their paw pads and toe pads stretched out and you take a peek in between them, then they're going to cooperate much easier for you or for another person whenever you're trying to, for example, trim paw hair out of the way on their feet. That's not going to be covered in this section, but I just wanted to give you a general idea that if you practice the grooming steps without the equipment at first, so they're going to be comfortable with handling them in those specific positionings, then they're going to be way more likely to adapt and adjust to new situations when you add grooming equipment to that. Now, in case the dog is not trained and we are expecting magic happening, oftentimes it's not going to happen, because the doggy is going to be in a new environment with a lot of new equipment, with a lot of new sounds, noises, people, and a doggy who is not trained, and we add so much new lessons to the situation, then we basically set up our dogs to failure. So it's incredibly important to train our doodles to grooming steps before we would actually groom them. Trained to new people versus not trained. In case you you take your dog to a groomer and you pick a person, it's incredibly important to keep your doggy comfortable around new people, because whenever we groom dogs, we are all over them. We are touching them, we are lifting them up, we are lifting them partially up or full body up. We are basically bending over the doggies all the time, and we are very close to them. So for doggies who are not trained to be okay with people around them, it can be very intimidating to have someone so close and check out their privates and brush their behind the ears and under the chin and cheeks. They're gonna freak out, basically, in case they are not trained to be around new people whenever it comes to grooming and working on them on close by to the care provider. Another part, finding a caring care provider and or becoming one yourself. This is a critical one also, because in case you're, let's say, living in a tiny town when there are not many groomers and you don't like the one who is offering services in yours, then you can learn everything from start to finish to be able to groom your own doggy. In case you go with partial grooming at home, like brushing, combing, bath, and you want to find a groomer who will take care of the full haircuts and sanitary trims and area trims and stuff like that, then you really need to make sure that you're finding a caring care provider who will work with you and their methods are in line and aligned with your mindset and approach and perspective about grooming. Because in case you are doing one method at home, like the gentle grooming, no leash, no muzzles, super keeping an eye out for feelings and needs and taking breaks when needed, and your groomer will be like, okay, let's get over with this. I have 15 more doggies to do today, so you need breaks, but I don't care. I'm just going to put a leash on your collar or on your harness, and I'm going to muzzle you and stuff like that. In case those two significantly different perspectives are exposed to the doggy, or the doggy is exposed to those two, then your doggy is going to be very, very confused. And you're going to have a harder time grooming him at home, because every single time they are exposed to grooming at the groomer, they're going to have an experience when they're going to feel like, oh my God, I don't want this. So they're going to do the same thing with you at home, or they're going to cooperate less, in case they're not going to be absolutely terrific, absolutely horrible for grooming, and they're going to avoid everything. But they want to, they will go into situations when they're not going to be cooperative. Accidents, injuries, or illnesses. Whether your doggy had a physical injury, for example, broken leg, cut by a glass door. I had a puppy. Oh my goodness, poor thing. He ran into a glass door and he broke it, and he cut the front two legs so bad that he had bandage on for weeks, and he broke a leg. And that dog was so very, very sensitive for his front feet that I could not believe it. But with a lot of effort from the mom and me, and we joined forces, the doggy was finally, it took several weeks, long weeks and months, to keep the doggy, get the doggy into a stage when he was okay with us brushing the legs. He got a lot of IVs in and a lot of treatment and stitches, and it was just so miserable for poor thing. He went through so much pain, and everything was on his front two legs that he really did not want anyone to touch it. So whatever kind of physical injury your doggy got exposed to, for example, an ear infection can cause doggies to freak out when it comes to checking their ears, or even when you're trying to brush the ears, they're gonna go like, So keeping in mind that whatever your doggy got exposed to, injuries, accidents, illnesses, then they have an effect on them, and we need to work on them so they can connect the dots like, okay, it's not the same thing, it's going to be different. For example, health issues, surgeries, needles, they will know, they will remember, and they will share expressions, and their body language will tell us whether they are comfy or not comfy, or whether they have concerns. For example, when we cut the doggy's nails too short, they will sure as heck will let us know that you're not touching my feet. I would bite like a sewing machine in case someone would cut my nail too short to bleed, especially that much, like doggies' nails tend to bleed when they cut it too short, without any kind of knowledge. But that's another topic. It's a really triggering one for me, and one of my favorite ones at the same time. That's why I'm writing a book about the topic. So yeah, whenever we expose our doggies to specialists who are not real specialists, but they just go ahead and do stuff to our pets, and for example they cut their nails too short, the doggy will be reacting. And it's not just going to be towards nail clippers. It oftentimes comes along for brushing the feet or combing the feet or blow drying the feet. They don't want you to do anything around their feet because they have some sort of PTSD around the topic, and they will be just like going wild, like no way. Clipper burns, nicks on skin. Same thing. Oftentimes, whenever doggies get groomed in a rush, then they get nicks on the skin around the privates, or they get clipper burns because the groomer is not paying attention whether the clipper blade is getting too hot, and they're just using it and running it on the skin. And doggies will remember that, and they will show us symptoms like, you're not doing that. And or they just develop discomfort around clippers, just in general, not necessarily around the area where they got burned, but in general, just seeing the clippers will trigger them. Or another typical one, super typical one, painful brushing, dematting. Oftentimes, doodle moms and dads use equipment in a way, and that's two different cases I'm talking about. Equipment in a way that it's painful for the dogs. And we cannot read, and oftentimes doodle moms cannot read early discomfort signs. And they just say like, oh, my doggy got so much for this. And there are reasons why they do it. And that's because the brushing is painful. We are pulling too much on the skin, and they are showing us signs like, hey, stop it. Or do it some other way because I don't really like the way you are doing it. Or we are using dematting rakes, for example, in a way that it's going to be painful for the dogs. Or groomers use brushing and dematting rakes, or brushes or dematting rakes on both, to detangle and demat, because we were begging forever for the groomer to open up stuff which is pretty much impossible to open up. And they agreed. So I'm not accusing anyone of anything. It's just like sometimes we tend to push our limits a little bit, and others pay for our desperation and passion to get something. So keeping in mind accidents, injuries, illnesses, that they have an effect on your dog's behavior, whether it was a physical injury, cutting the nails too short, or broken leg, or painful brushing, dematting, which are awfully typical, especially the cutting the nails too long and painful brushing, dematting. Then we need to work on them to desensitize them. They are not bad dogs. They are not mean dogs. They're not aggressive dogs. They are just showing us early or late discomfort signs and telling us that something happened in the past that we need to uncover or help the doggy. In case we have a rescue and we have no idea what happened to them, we need to go from where we are at and desensitize the doggy to that and try to guess what happened to them, and seriously analyze the situation, how we are using and what we are using, and so we can keep them comfortable and we can have them work their way toward comfort.